Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Backstage Bikini podcast. This is your host, Grace, and for episode number 4, I'm going to follow on similar to Jade and talk a little bit about my competing journey, my season this year, and also my future plans. So I'm going to try and make it short, and hopefully you guys take some value from it. I started competing in 2019, and I fell into it kind of by chance. I've always been an athletic person, a sporty person, playing Gaelic football, basketball, you name it, I did it. And I was a massive cardio bunny as well, always going on runs. And in 2018, I unfortunately suffered with a concussion in a football match, and I was put out of sport ever since. I dealt with what was called post-concussion syndrome. So I was dealing with really, really bad migraines, dizziness spells, and that lasted for about 2 years. I'd only say now that I'm starting to kind of come around in the last year or so from it. So it was quite tough in that sense that I had to stop playing sport altogether. Contact sport was just an absolute no-go. So I put all of my energy and my competitive nature into competing. I decided to compete at the end of 2018. I got a coach, Larry Doyle, and I did my first show in April of 2019, and it was with the RIBBF, which is an Irish federation, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the entire process. I didn't think I would. I never thought I would be somebody to step up on stage. I remember when I was looking online at people, I was like, not a hope in hell would I be able to do that. It's just not for me. I don't like the glitz, the glam, the posing. It just wasn't me at all. I'm a very much a tomboy, and it was just something I never saw myself doing. But I absolutely loved the process, and I had a really, really enjoyable first prep, and I loved stepping on stage. And I guess you could say I got the bug then. My second show was PCA Ireland, and I came first in the junior category. So I was 21 at the time, and yeah, it was just such a phenomenal experience. I absolutely loved it. And I knew that this sport was for me. So I took an off season. Obviously, COVID then happened in start of 2020, and I had plans to compete that year. I started with my new coach Cal at the start of 2020, and then that was obviously put off with COVID. So I took an off season. Well, I guess you could call it an off season when we didn't have access to gyms. Probably wasn't a proper off season, but I did my best with what I had and tried to build what I could. And then I started prep for the 2021 season in February time. And I competed with two bros. It was my first time with the NPC. I competed with two bros, and I was coming second and third. Yeah, second and third in those shows. I went to Alicante then, and I competed over there, and I came first. So that season was absolutely incredible. It was my first season with the NPC, and I was so, so happy with what I came away with. And off the back of that, I knew I had to build a lot of muscle, and essentially that was my first off season. First time having access to the gym, first time genuinely building food up and just having a structured plan in place with my coach Cal. So that lasted about 10 months, and I started my 2022 season in May of this year. And I've just finished shows. I'm currently 5 weeks post show now. Is it 5 weeks? Yeah, the time is just flying. But this year, I'm very, very happy with my placings. I've done a lot of reflection, and given the shows that I was in and how big they were and the standard, I'm very, very happy with how I placed. So I came second and third again in the majority of the shows. I came first in novice in the regional, and then I was coming kind of second and third. I came second in the Arnolds in my high class, and then I came third in Spain, and then I came first in two bros at Norway. So it was a long prep. It was a 24-week prep. So it was very, very long. And yeah, I suppose looking back now, I'm very, very happy with my placings because the standard of those shows is incredibly high. But again, I knew that I needed more size. The girls in these international shows are just insane. Their glutes are next level. So I knew I needed to go away and grow, because that is one thing that definitely lets me down as a kind of taller girl. I really struggle to build my lower half. So yeah, I'm currently 5 weeks post show, and I had planned to compete next year. And I suppose this is leading on to what I want to speak about, because it's been really, really hard the last couple of days for me to make this decision. But a few weeks ago, when I finished prep, I had set the goal of competing in 2023. When you initially get off stage, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, you are already itching to get back up there. You know the improvements that you want to make, and you have it in your head, this is when you want to compete, you're going to be ready, etc., etc. So I'd mapped out a plan with Kyle, and the plan was going to be to start prep in around April, May time for shows later next year. We're taking things a little bit differently this off season in terms of my composition. So the aim is to not gain as much body fat as I did the last time around. Meaning that when prep comes around, it won't be as harsh. I'll have a little bit to lose, but not as much as I did this year. This year, I ended up losing 17 kilos. So, you know, it was really, really tough. I had to dig harder than I ever have dug before. And I spoke to Cal, and we both agreed that just keeping a tighter composition would serve us way better. It would serve for a better look next time around. So that was the goal, was to stay within maybe 7, 8, 9 kilos of my stage weight rather than going up to 17 kilos. So that was the plan then, to compete next year and hopefully have maybe like a shorter prep, giving us a little bit longer to grow. So I did just finish my season. I finished it in October. So if I was to start prep again, I'd have probably less of an off season than I did just gone. My feedback, I'm just going to briefly go through that. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, so hopefully you're with me on this one. But my feedback this year was to grow my glutes. I was told that my upper body is pretty much there. So in terms of what I need to grow, it's mainly my glutes. They said stay away from quads. I'm pretty happy with the development of my lower body, and I suppose like most bikini girls, it is just the glute area that definitely needs to bring up the most. So I don't have that much of a margin, I suppose, to grow. So in my head and in Cal's head and even in Ross's head, it was a good idea to I suppose just spend maybe 7 to 8 months focusing on the glutes and then prep next year. But I have had a lot of thoughts, a lot of conflicting thoughts the last, I would say, week. And I had Cal over in the house the other day, and I just openly spoke about it with him and what he thought, because it's something that's constantly in the back of your head as a competitor when you're going to compete next, and what your next step is. We all want a plan, like Jade spoke about in her previous podcast. We thrive off having a plan, and you always want to know what the next step is, and you want that timeline mapped out to an absolute T. And there were so many thoughts in my head, and to me it just didn't feel right to compete next year. Even though my training has changed a lot, and I know that I will grow my glutes a good bit between now and summertime, there's still a bit of self-doubt. And this year on prep, I really, really got into my own head. I set big goals, like we all do, and like we all should, to reach for a pro card this year. And the more I prepped, the more I realized that I might not be close to that goal yet. And I got into my own head a little bit, and self-doubt definitely creeped in. And even now, the last couple of weeks, there's been even self-doubt about next year. And that's when it kind of got me and made me realize, you know, if I'm going into, I suppose, the next season with more self-doubt, that is going to kill me a lot. And it's going to stress me out. And the stress this year really, really got to me. I do feel it impacted my look a little bit because I was getting in my own head a lot. So I didn't want that self-doubt going into next year. As I said before, I'm a very competitive person. Anybody who competes is generally a little bit competitive in nature, and we all want to win, right? And in the back of my head, I did not want to compete if I wasn't going to win. And as much work as you can put in and really make the most of the time that you have, there's still that worry that you might not come away with first. And a prep is very, very tough on the body. And in my head, to do what I did this year and to not come away with a first would absolutely kill me. And it might destroy my relationship with competing if I didn't come away with the first and I was getting second and third again. Because as I said, I'm very competitive, and as proud as I am of those placings, I do want to win. And we all compete to win. I feel like we should, when you put your body through so much. So there was all of that self-doubt and whether I was going to be ready. And I spoke to Cal and we both came to the agreement that it would be best if I didn't prep next year. It's been a very, very difficult decision, and Jade spoke about it. It's never easy to make that call when you have these goals, and the thought of them being further away is really, really hard to deal with. But the more that I thought about it, and the more that I realized it goes beyond just the size that I need to grow. There's other things that I need to focus on and other elements of my life that I need to invest my energy into in order to make me a better athlete. So, taking that time out goes beyond just actually growing physically, but growing as a person, growing as a businesswoman, and just strengthening myself mentally, because I'm somebody that I suppose I'm very susceptible to stress. And if I was to compete next year, I know there would be elements of my life that I haven't got under control yet, and that stress would impact me again. And I spoke to Oscar in the gym. If you know Oscar Young, I spoke to him in the gym, and he said it, he put it very, very well. There's elements of your life that you need to water and attend to make you the better athlete. And for me, that's just my life. I competed in 2019 and then COVID happened. So I didn't have any social life, really. None of us did. And then I competed in 2021. I had a little bit of time off in between, and then I competed again in 2022. So I haven't really had a summer or a period of time to just be a normal human again since really kind of prior to 2019. And I need to spend more time with my family. I need to spend more time watering my relationship with my boyfriend. We haven't gone on a holiday in a very, very long time, like an actual sun holiday. I have weddings that I need to attend to, and friends that I want to meet, and just a life that I want to live. And I feel like my season in 2024 will be so much better when I attend to my life outside of competing. I know that I'll be entering prep way less stressed because I've attended to those elements of my life. And not only that, I'll be going into prep with a lot less self doubt and just more time under my belt with growing, time that I actually haven't really had because COVID happened. I didn't have access to a gym. And last off season was really, although it was 10 months, a massive chunk of that was spent recovering. I've spoke about this before on my YouTube, but it took me quite some time to recover from my 2021 prep in terms of my thyroid. So really, I only actually had about kind of 7 months of growing. Well, really less than that, because I did end up getting COVID over Christmas and I lost my appetite. And there was just a lot of things that didn't make that off season as productive as it could have been. And I'll essentially be taking what is going to be a year and a half off to genuinely grow, to take, I suppose, invest time into other areas of my life and just have a really, really productive off season and go into that prep a lot less stressed, with a lot less self doubt and more confidence in myself. And I suppose mentally ready to compete, because there's nothing worse than prep coming around and you not feeling ready physically and mentally. And anybody who competes knows that recovery can take a good while post show, and you need to give your body that time before you jump into another prep. So I'm still 5 weeks post show. Don't I don't think I'll be fully recovered until I get my cycle back, which can take time. And we will touch on this in kind of future podcasts. And then really I'll be kind of starting prep around April, May time. And I just don't feel like, as I said, like I would have been ready or attended to those other areas of my life that I know I need to attend to make myself less stressed. And also a big one is business. So I, of course, run my own business. I'm an online coach, trained by Grace, and I've got a fair few clients who are deciding to compete next year, which is absolutely amazing, and also in 2024. And I want 2023 to be not just about growth in my physique, but growth in my business. And I want to invest all of my time into that as well, because prep does take its toll on your brain function, and you might not be as productive as you want to be. So I want to spend all next year just growing my business and focusing on my clients and bringing them to stage, and I suppose getting the same kind of dopamine with prepping them as prepping myself. So that's been a massive goal for me. And also starting this podcast, I want to invest my time into this and have this as my little I suppose what would I say, as my little entry into the industry. Because when you step away from competing, you can feel a little bit lost, you can feel a little bit of an outsider, you can feel irrelevant. And I want this podcast to be my opportunity to keep myself in the game and speak to pros and speak to people who are on prep and speak to coaches and judges and be very much involved, rather than feeling like I'm an outsider or like I've kind of just lost touch with it, if that makes sense. So that's my decisions for next year. It really hasn't been an easy one. I have cried. The big emotional head on me, the big hormonal head on me has cried a lot the last couple of days in making this decision, mainly because I do have goals with competing, and I didn't like the sound of them being even further away. But ultimately, and I say this time and time again, and I say it with clients who decide that they want to compete, time is on your side. And Jade touched on it as well. The stage is always going to be there. And a lot of the time, we have this kind of urgency to always get back on prep. And time is on our side, unless you are at an age where you do want to move on, you want to have kids. But ultimately, I'm 25, and I know if I want to do well, I need to give myself time. I need to be patient. I need to make the improvements, not only my physique, but in other areas of my life, to be the best athlete that I can be in 2024 and hopefully earn that pro card. Um, so that is where I'm at. It hasn't been an easy decision, as I said, but I know that there's so many other important things that I need to focus on next year that are going to bring me just as much fulfillment. So as hard as it might be, I just keep on reminding myself of all of those things that I can look forward to, and I can look forward to growing. And as I said, the main thing is I want to do the 2024 season in the best position possible, mentally ready, physically ready, not have any self-doubt, and know that what I'm going for is really within reach. And I don't want to have that self-doubt next year. So that's my main aim for next year. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Jay touched on it very, very well in her podcast with kind of taking the time out. But I just wanted, I suppose, explain my reasonings behind it, and hopefully you guys can relate to that as well. It's not something that should be feared. It should be something that is encouraged. And as I said before, it doesn't make you any less of an athlete for taking longer time away. It makes you more of an athlete as well. And so it just ensures that you're coming back better, and really, really fulfilling your potential as well. So hopefully you enjoy this podcast, guys. And do be sure to tune in to future podcasts. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of guests that we have on, but hopefully this gives you a good insight into me, who I am, and also my future plans. So thank you guys so much for listening. Do be sure to share this on your social media pages, and I will chat to you in the next podcast. See you guys.